I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office on the 35th floor, watching as snow transformed Manhattan's financial district into a quiet, silvery world. The digital clock on my desk showed 3 p.m. on December 23rd. Being a VP at one of New York's top investment banks had its perks, like this corner office with its breathtaking view. My desk was barely visible under piles of fourth-quarter investment reports and deal analyses. The walls displayed my achievements, awards from successful IPO deals, and recognition for my work in fintech investments. At 33, I'd earned my reputation as one of the youngest VPs in the firm, especially after my successful moves during the pandemic market. Will everything really go according to plan tomorrow? I muttered, my usually confident expression wavering as I touched the diamond necklace at my throat, my father's last gift to me. 15 years had passed since Dad's death. During that time, I'd thrown myself into building my career, climbing from analyst to VP, growing my annual income to $250,000. My investment portfolio, carefully managed with a mix of tech stocks and emerging market funds, proved my financial acumen. My phone buzzed with a new Instagram notification. It was my brother Ethan, flaunting his latest Rolex, living the dream #luxury life. #blessed. #watch collector. I felt my jaw tighten. Ethan had burned through his share of Dad's inheritance, then lost even more in crypto investments. His wife Victoria, my sister-in-law, was cut from the same cloth, her social media constantly overflowing with designer purchases and luxury vacation posts. Together, they maintained a facade of wealth while drowning in debt. Last night, Victoria had called, as usual, about money. Her voice had that familiar manipulative sweetness that made my skin crawl. Ethan needs help with some investment opportunities, she'd said, which I knew meant he'd made another poor financial decision. Just a small loan, family helps family, right, Madison? I'll think about it, I'd replied non-committally, having grown tired of being their personal bank. Opening my desk drawer, I took out the last photo taken with Dad, him in his hospital bed, still managing a warm smile despite his illness. I'm doing this for us, Dad, I whispered, my eyes moving to the hotel confirmation email on my screen. The St. Regis Hotel, $1,500 per night for the presidential suite. Victoria had insisted on handling all the Christmas stay arrangements herself, making a show of her generosity, in including me. What she didn't know was that I had my own arrangements in place, thanks to my close relationship with Gabriel Mitchell, the hotel chain's new tech CEO-owner. We'd met during a fintech investment deal, and he'd become both a business partner and a trusted friend. This wasn't just about a luxury hotel stay anymore. It was about finally standing up to Victoria's attempts to control and humiliate our family through her social power plays. My office phone rang. It was Gabriel's personal assistant from the St. Regis. I straightened in my chair, switching to my professional tone. Yes, Madison Kennedy speaking. The assistant confirmed the suite arrangements for tomorrow, unaware that I already had full access to the booking system through Gabriel's tech platform. Victoria had indeed booked me into what was essentially a basement storage room, a calculated insult disguised as hospitality. Back in my midtown condo, I stood before my half-packed Rimowa suitcase, carefully considering my wardrobe choices. A dark green Max Mara cashmere sweater lay neatly folded on my bed. At $800, it wasn't the $5,000 Brunello Cucinelli piece Victoria had been flaunting on Instagram last week, but its understated elegance perfectly reflected my philosophy, quality over showmanship. Is this too subtle? I murmured, holding the sweater against me in the mirror. Victoria would undoubtedly arrive dripping in logos, her newest Chanel tweed suit, that gaudy Gucci bag she'd been posting about. She had a way of making every family gathering feel like a fashion competition, one where taste took a back seat to price tags. My phone rang. Gabriel Mitchell's name lit up the screen. How's our plan progressing? His voice carried its usual tech entrepreneur confidence, though I detected a note of concern. Everything's in place, I replied, trying to mask my fatigue. I've accessed the booking system. Victoria has no idea you're involved. Gabriel wasn't just any hotel owner, he was the 35-year-old CEO who'd revolutionized the luxury hotel industry with his property management platform. We'd met during a fintech investment round where I'd led my bank's $50 million investment in his startup. Since then, we'd built both a professional partnership and a friendship based on mutual respect. Tomorrow will be different, I said, walking to my window overlooking the city lights. Victoria's power play is about to backfire spectacularly. After ending the call, I settled onto my sofa, picking up Dad's photo from the coffee table. 15 years ago, in that sterile hospital room, his thin hand had gripped mine with surprising strength. "You're smart and strong, Madison," he'd said. "You're the only one I trust to handle the family's future." Those words had driven me through Princeton's economics program, through endless nights of financial modeling, through every gender barrier in investment banking. I'd earned my VP position at 33, younger than most of my male colleagues. Meanwhile, Ethan had dropped out of NYU after Dad's death, burning through his inheritance on failed crypto ventures and whatever schemes Victoria cooked up. Their wedding had been $1 million spectacle, paid for with what remained of his trust fund. Now they lived on credit and appearance, maintaining their luxury lifestyle through increasingly desperate means. My phone vibrated with a text from Ethan. "You're driving us to the hotel tomorrow, right? Car service is too expensive this season." His entitled tone was evident even through text. I simply replied, "I'll be there at 9. I felt a twinge of irritation at being relegated to chauffeur status. Victoria and Ethan typically used Uber Black for everything. Ethan hadn't even renewed his driver's license last year. But suddenly, my Tesla Model S was convenient for them. It was already 10 p.m. I closed my laptop after one final check of the St. Regis booking system. Everything was in place. Gabriel had given me administrator access, allowing me to see Victoria's complete reservation details, including her special requests for my basement accommodation. My heartbeat quickened slightly as I finished packing. I picked up Dad's photo one last time, his smile seeming to encourage me. "Everything will change tomorrow," I whispered, heading to bed. Sleep came fitfully, my mind alternating between anticipation and strategic planning. Manhattan sparkled under a fresh blanket of snow on Christmas Eve morning. I woke up at 6 a.m., before my alarm rang. "Game day," I murmured, taking a deep breath as I slipped out of bed. The extra 30 minutes would help me center myself before facing Victoria's inevitable psychological warfare. In my bathroom, I applied my makeup with precision, focusing on appearing polished but not trying too hard, exactly the opposite of Victoria's approach. Around my neck hung Dad's diamond pendant, my talisman and reminder of why I was doing this. My cashmere sweater and tailored pants projected the understated confidence I'd earned through years of navigating male-dominated boardrooms. In the mirror, I saw both the accomplished VP and the daughter still seeking her father's approval. He'd be proud, I reassured myself, checking the St. Regis app one last time. The underground garage of my midtown building was quiet, most residents still asleep. My Tesla gleamed under the fluorescent lights as I started the engine. The navigation display showed my first destination, Victoria and Ethan's new Brooklyn Heights brownstone. They'd purchased it 3 months ago, a $4.2 million property that, according to my investment banking sources, they'd financed with an interest-only mortgage that would reset in 2 years. Another facade in their house of financial cards. Victoria was waiting outside their brownstone, a vision in a scarlet Moncler puffer coat, enormous sunglasses, and a new Gucci bag I recognized from her Instagram post last week. Ethan stood beside her, engrossed in his phone, probably checking crypto prices again. Finally, Victoria said instead of a greeting, her tone suggesting I was a tardy Uber driver. "The St. Regis waits for no one, Madison." Ethan barely looked up, mumbling something that might have been morning. "Merry Christmas to you too," I replied pleasantly, watching in the rearview mirror as Victoria inspected my car's interior with a barely concealed sneer. "We need to pick up my mom and dad," Ethan said, finally looking up from his phone. I noted how he referred to them as my mom and dad, though technically, they were my parents too. Victoria had a talent for creating these subtle exclusions, reinforcing the narrative that I was somehow peripheral to my own family. I drove carefully, hyper-aware of each passenger. Ethan sat beside me, absorbed in his phone, occasionally angling the screen so I could glimpse his Instagram post being composed, something about family luxury getaways, with hashtags that made me inwardly cringe. The atmosphere in the Tesla was suffocating. Victoria and my mother whispered in the back seat, their conversation punctuated by occasional knowing glances my way. My stepfather stared out the window, as disengaged as ever unless money was being discussed. After navigating Manhattan traffic and hitting the highway, we drove about an hour before the imposing structure of the St. Regis, New York came into view, its historic facade glowing warmly against the snowy backdrop. "There it is!" Victoria exclaimed with theatrical excitement. "The most exclusive address in Manhattan." The St. Regis stood regally amid the winter wonderland of Fifth Avenue. Its Beaux-Arts architecture exuded old-world luxury, with doormen in tailored uniforms assisting guests from Bentleys and Rolls-Royces. A magnificent Christmas tree adorned the entrance, and holiday lights transformed the facade into something from a fairy tale. Victoria pressed her face to the window like a child, though I knew the display was calculated. "I requested the presidential suite," she announced loudly. "Only the best for our family Christmas." I merely nodded, knowing exactly what she'd requested, for them and for me. I pulled up to the hotel entrance where a uniformed valet approached. As he opened the passenger door, Victoria's demeanor shifted subtly. "Madison has worked so hard driving us here," she said, her voice honeyed but laced with ice. I turned to see her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, thank you for the ride," my mother added with an oddly formal tone. Ethan avoided eye contact entirely, suddenly fascinated by his phone. My stepfather remained silent, examining his cufflinks. Warning bells rang in my head. This wasn't just their usual dismissiveness. "I've arranged everything perfectly," Victoria continued, her voice carrying a triumphant edge. "Since you insisted on joining our Christmas celebration, we've found accommodations for you." She handed me a separate key card with a flourish. "What's this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Your room key," Victoria replied sweetly. "It's in the basement level. Staff quarters, actually, but they've made it habitable. We couldn't possibly squeeze you into our suite, it would ruin the aesthetic I've planned." Ethan snickered, finally looking up. "The driver's quarters are downstairs, sis." The coldness of the betrayal wasn't in its unexpectedness, but in its public nature. The doorman, the valet, other guests, all witnessed my humiliation. "I see," I said quietly, studying the key card. "And the reservation I made months ago?" "Overridden," Victoria replied with a dismissive wave. "I spoke with management. Our family name carries weight here." They exited my car, Victoria directing bellhops to their luggage with imperious gestures. Standing alone in the cold, I reached for my phone with steady hands and called Gabriel. "Is it happening?" he answered, expecting my call. "Exactly as predicted," I replied, my voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "Basement room for me, presidential suite for them. Execute our plan." "Already done," Gabriel replied. Their reservation status changed 30 seconds ago. I watched through the windshield as Victoria swept toward the entrance, my mother and Ethan trailing behind like courtiers. Even from a distance, I could see the concierge's face change as he consulted his screen. I watched the scene unfold from my Tesla, savoring each moment like the finale of a perfectly executed financial strategy. The St. Regis front desk manager, Gabriel, had texted me that he'd personally dispatched the senior staff member, approached Victoria with perfect composure. His black uniform stood in stark contrast to the snowy backdrop, creating a theatrical tableau. "I apologize, Mrs. Kennedy, but we have no reservation under your name," he stated with practiced regret. "Our system shows that it was cancelled approximately." He consulted his tablet 3 minutes ago. Victoria's smile evaporated instantly. Her face contorted in disbelief before reassembling into the haughty mask she wore when challenged. "That's impossible," she hissed. "Check again." Kennedy. Presidential suite. My mother frantically dug through her designer bag, searching for confirmation emails that would no longer match the hotel's records. My stepfather finally engaged with the situation, stepping forward with the authoritative manner he used to intimidate service workers. "There must be some mistake," my mother's anxious voice carried across the entrance. "My daughter-in-law confirmed everything yesterday." I pressed the button to lower my window, the electric hum catching their attention. 5 heads turned simultaneously toward me. "It's not a mistake," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the cold air. "The reservation has been cancelled. All of them." I allowed myself a small smile. "Merry Christmas." "Madison!" Victoria shrieked, her composure shattering completely. "What have you done?" Ethan rushed toward my car, panic replacing his earlier smugness. "Hey, this isn't funny. The basement room thing was just a joke. You can stay with us." "Too late," I replied, engaging the drive mode. "Enjoy explaining to your Instagram followers why you're stranded in front of the St. Regis on Christmas Eve." Victoria lunged forward, her designer boots sinking into the snow as she tried to reach my window. "You can't do this. Every hotel in the city is booked." "I know," I replied simply, pulling away from the curb. In my rearview mirror, I watched my family shrink into a tableau of shocked faces and helpless gestures against the Grand Hotel entrance. Driving away from the St. Regis, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders with each block of distance. Snowflakes danced in the headlights as I navigated through Manhattan streets increasingly empty on Christmas Eve. A single tear rolled down my cheek, not of sadness but of release. 15 years of playing financial savior to a family that viewed me as nothing more than an ATM and occasional chauffeur. My phone began its symphony of distress. Ethan calling. Declined. Victoria calling. Declined. My mother calling. Declined. Then the text messages flooded in. "How could you do this to your own family? It's Christmas Eve. We have nowhere to go. You've humiliated us in front of everyone. Victoria is in tears. Is that what you wanted? At minimum, you need to refund the cost of the reservations." The last message from my stepfather made me laugh out loud in the quiet car. Always about the money. Never about the relationship or the basement room humiliation they'd planned for me. Just cold calculations dressed up as family obligation. I connected my phone to the car speakers and dialed Gabriel. "Mission accomplished," his voice filled the car. "Perfectly executed," I replied, feeling lighter than I had in years. You should have seen Victoria's face when the manager told her there was no reservation. "I had the security cameras trained on the entrance," Gabriel admitted with a chuckle. "I may have been watching the live feed." "You didn't." "The benefits of owning a tech platform that manages hotel operations," he replied. "Are you okay?" "I'm more than okay," I said, realizing it was true. "I'm free." I drove through Manhattan toward Tribeca, deciding against returning to my own condo. Instead, I navigated toward Gabriel's building, a sleek glass tower overlooking the Hudson River. Snow continued to fall, transforming the city into a magical landscape. With each mile, I felt my shoulders relaxing, my breathing deepening. The rearview mirror reflected someone I hadn't seen in years, Madison Kennedy, unburdened and clear-eyed. The Tesla's quiet cabin, free from Victoria's cutting remarks and Ethan's demands, felt like a sanctuary. I pulled up my investment portfolio on the car's display, making a mental note to cancel the automatic monthly transfers to Ethan's account. One more tie to sever, one more step toward freedom. Christmas music played softly as I drove, and for the first time in years, the holiday actually felt meaningful, not as a performance for Instagram, but as a genuine celebration of change and self-worth. My Tesla glided into the private garage beneath Gabriel's building 2 hours later. As I rode the express elevator to the penthouse, warmth spread through my chest, not anxiety or dread, but anticipation. When the elevator doors opened directly into his penthouse, Gabriel was waiting with 2 glasses of wine. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the snow falling over the Hudson River, and a fire crackled in the modern fireplace. "Did Operation Basement Room succeed?" he asked, his tech entrepreneur's mind always focusing on outcomes first. "Flawlessly," I replied, accepting the wine and sinking into his plush sofa. You should have seen Victoria's face when reality hit. Gabriel sat beside me, his expression shifting from satisfaction to concern. "Are you really okay, though? That was your family you left standing in the snow." "Was it, though?" I asked, suddenly thoughtful. "They stopped being family years ago." I recounted everything, Victoria's cruel smile when revealing my basement accommodations, my mother's complicit silence, Ethan's childish glee at my humiliation. Gabriel listened intently, occasionally asking questions, but mostly giving me space to process. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said finally. "I don't feel guilty. I feel liberated." "You should," Gabriel replied firmly. "Madison, they were financial and emotional parasites. You didn't just make the right choice, you made the only healthy choice." "But I ruined their Christmas," I murmured, staring into my wine glass, voicing the last whisper of doubt. "No," Gabriel's voice was gentle but resolute. "They ruined their own Christmas with their cruelty. You just refused to be their victim." Tears welled in my eyes, not of sorrow or regret, but of release. 15 years of carrying my father's last request, of trying to hold together a family that only valued me for my checkbook. My phone vibrated again on the coffee table. A message from my stepfather illuminated the screen. "Your selfish actions have disgraced this family. Don't bother contacting us again." I picked up the phone, switched it off completely, and set it aside. Gabriel moved closer, his hand warm on my shoulder, a gesture of support rather than the manipulation I'd grown accustomed to from my family. "From tomorrow," I said, watching the flames dance in the fireplace, "my life is truly my own. No more monthly transfers, no more emergency loans, no more being the family ATM." Gabriel nodded, understanding both what I was saying and what I wasn't. The investment banker in me had finally applied the same clear-eyed assessment to my personal life that I used every day with clients, cutting losses, recognizing toxic assets, and making the hard decisions that lead to growth. I touched my father's diamond necklace, feeling its familiar weight. "Dad wanted me to take care of the family," I said quietly. "But I think he meant for me to help them grow, not enable their worst instincts." "I think he'd be proud of you tonight," Gabriel replied. For the first time in years, Christmas Eve felt meaningful, not as a performance for others' approval, but as a commemoration of reclaiming my worth. The diamond at my throat caught the firelight, glittering like the new possibilities ahead. On Christmas morning, I woke to Manhattan transformed into a winter wonderland. Through Gabriel's floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched before me like an elegant black and white photograph, snow gently falling between skyscrapers, nature's way of softening the sharp edges of last night's confrontation. Gabriel was already in the kitchen when I emerged from the guest room, working the espresso machine with practiced precision. The rich aroma filled the open-plan space. "Good morning," he smiled, sliding a steaming cup toward me. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in years," I admitted, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. Gabriel leaned against the counter, his expression turning serious. "I heard from the St. Regis management this morning. Your family created quite a scene last night." I moved to the window, gazing out at the snow-covered city. "I'm not surprised." "What happened?" "Victoria demanded to speak with the general manager, then threatened legal action," Gabriel explained. "When that didn't work, Ethan tried to use some crypto connection to intimidate the staff. Eventually, they had to call an Uber Black to take them to your mother's place. Victoria was apparently still ranting as they left." I nodded, feeling strangely detached from the drama. "Sounds about right." Victoria never accepts defeat gracefully. After breakfast, I finally turned on my phone. The screen immediately lit up with notifications: 47 missed calls, 112 messages. Watching them pour in felt like witnessing someone else's crisis. The messages ranged from furious to manipulative. "Madison, how could you embarrass us like this?" "The hotel staff were laughing at us." "Victoria, this childish behavior is beneath someone of your position. You've disgraced the family name." "My stepfather, your brother, is devastated." "Is this how you repay everything we've done for you?" "My mother." "Okay, fine, joke's over. We need your credit card for a new hotel. Call ASAP." Ethan, the last message, sent just an hour ago, was the most revealing. "Madison, we need to discuss your financial obligations to this family. Call me immediately." "My mother." I set the phone down with a deep sigh. Gabriel approached from behind, placing his hands gently on my shoulders. "I've made my decision," I said, feeling surprisingly calm. "I'm cutting all financial ties with them." Gabriel moved to face me, his expression serious. "Are you absolutely certain? They are your blood relatives, after all." "No," I replied firmly. "They're not family, not in any way that matters. Real family supports each other, celebrates successes together. These people are just financial parasites who happen to share my DNA." I touched my father's diamond necklace, the only inheritance I truly valued. "Dad asked me to take care of the family, but I think he meant for me to guide them, not enable their worst instincts." Gabriel nodded, understanding both what I was saying and what I wasn't. The investment banker in me had finally applied the same clear-eyed assessment to my personal relationships that I used daily with client portfolios, identifying toxic assets, cutting losses, and making the hard decisions that enable future growth. "You know," I continued, feeling stronger with each word, "in finance, we have a term for continuously pouring resources into failing investments, the sunk cost fallacy. I've been making that exact mistake with my family for 15 years. Gabriel smiled, recognizing the terminology. "And today is when you finally diversify your emotional portfolio?" "Exactly," I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. High time for some strategic divestment. We moved to Gabriel's dining area, where he'd prepared a simple but elegant breakfast: fresh croissants from Balthazar, perfectly scrambled eggs with truffle, and fresh berries. The normalcy of it, free from Victoria's social media documentation or my mother's passive-aggressive comments, felt revolutionary. "I have a business proposal for you," Gabriel said after we'd eaten, his expression thoughtful. "The tech startup you helped me fund is expanding into financial services. We need someone with your expertise to lead the division." I set down my coffee cup, surprised. "You want me to join your company?" "As a partner," he clarified. "Equal equity stake." Your investment strategies combined with my tech platforms could revolutionize how luxury hospitality handles wealth management. Outside, snow continued to fall silently beyond the windows. The offer represented everything I'd been working toward professionally: autonomy, recognition, partnership based on respect rather than obligation. We could build something meaningful together, Gabriel continued. Both professionally and personally. The implication wasn't lost on me. Our relationship had been building towards something more significant for months, held back partly by my family complications. Tears welled in my eyes, not of stress or manipulation, but of possibility. For 15 years, I'd been tethered to financial and emotional parasites. Now, I was being offered a true partnership. Yes, I said simply. To all of it. My phone rang again, my mother's name flashing on the screen. This time, I didn't hesitate. I picked it up, blocked her number, then systematically blocked Ethan, Victoria, and my stepfather as well. I've taken the first step toward my new life, I said, setting the phone down with finality. Gabriel squeezed my hand. The hardest decisions often lead to the best outcomes. Spoken like a true tech entrepreneur, I laughed, feeling genuinely happy for the first time in years. By mid-January, Manhattan had transformed from winter wonderland to frozen tundra. A polar vortex had descended, sending temperatures plummeting below zero. From my new corner office in Gabriel's fintech headquarters, I watched people hurrying along the streets below, bundled against the bitter wind. The past weeks had been transformative. I'd resigned from the investment bank, accepted a partnership role with Gabriel's company, and begun the process of merging our personal lives as well. We were developing a revolutionary platform combining luxury hospitality with personalized financial services, something that leveraged both our expertise. My assistant's voice came through the intercom, interrupting my thoughts. Ms. Kennedy, there's someone in reception asking for you. She doesn't have an appointment. Who is it? I asked, though something in my gut already knew. Mrs. Victoria Kennedy. My hands froze above my keyboard. Victoria. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud since Christmas Eve. The monitor on my desk showed the reception area feed, and there she was, a shadow of her former polished self. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a plain coat that had seen better days. The imperious posture was gone, replaced by something almost desperate. She says it's urgent family business, my assistant added. I considered my options. Part of me wanted to deny her entry, to maintain the clean break I'd established. But another part, perhaps the investment banker trained to analyze all scenarios, was curious about what could have brought Victoria to my door after weeks of silence. Send her up, I decided. And stay on alert. If I message you with the word portfolio, come in immediately with an urgent call. Understood, my assistant replied. I straightened my desk, centered myself with a deep breath, and prepared to face the woman who had tried to relegate me to a basement room on Christmas Eve. Whatever Victoria wanted, I was no longer the accommodating, checkbook-ready sister-in-law she'd once manipulated. Send her up, I said, my voice steady despite the surprise. In our sleek reception area, my heels clicked purposefully on the polished concrete floors as I prepared to face Victoria. The glass-walled conference room where I'd instructed my assistant to seat her offered a perfect view of the Hudson River, and of Victoria herself, sitting stiffly on the edge of a chair. She looked different, thinner, with circles under her eyes poorly concealed by makeup. Her coat wasn't the Burberry or Moncler she typically flaunted, but a simple gray wool number that appeared to have been purchased off the rack. No designer bag in sight. I paused at the door, centering myself before entering. The Madison who had allowed herself to be manipulated was gone, replaced by the clear-eyed strategist who had built a career on making hard decisions. Victoria, I said, my voice cool as I entered. This is unexpected. Her eyes met mine, the usual haughtiness replaced by something unfamiliar, desperation. "Madison," she replied, her voice lacking its customary sharp edge. "Thank you for seeing me." I took a seat across from her, maintaining professional distance. "What can I do for you?" Victoria's hands fidgeted with the edge of her coat. "Things have changed since Christmas." "I imagine they have," I replied neutrally. She inhaled deeply before continuing. "We've reached our breaking point. The credit cards are maxed out. Ethan's crypto investments, they're worthless now. The mortgage payment on the brownstone is 2 months behind." It was exactly as I'd predicted. The financial house of cards had finally collapsed. My investment banker's mind had run these projections months ago: how long they could maintain appearances after Dad's inheritance ran out, how quickly Ethan's poor financial decisions would catch up to them. "And your point is?" I asked, though I already knew. "We need help," Victoria admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "Just until Ethan's new business venture takes off." "Another cryptocurrency scheme?" I asked. Victoria's silence was answer enough. "Is this about money, Victoria? Just be direct." "Yes," she said, looking down. "For the mortgage payments, Ethan's car loan, and stop," I interrupted firmly. "I'm not your financial safety net anymore. That role ended on Christmas Eve when you tried to put me in a basement room while you enjoyed the presidential suite." Victoria's carefully crafted facade crumbled slightly. "But we're family. That's what families do, help each other." "Family?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "What exactly does family mean to you, Victoria? Was it family when you deliberately humiliated me in front of the St. Regis staff? Was it family when you smiled that triumphant smile while handing me the basement key card? Was it family when my mother said nothing when Ethan laughed?" Victoria's expression darkened, then shifted to something that resembled contrition. "Madison, I admit I went too far that day. It was cruel and I regret it." Her eyes welled with tears that seemed genuine. "But right now, we're truly desperate. Please, I need your help." I stood and walked to the window overlooking the city's skyline. In the distance, I could see the financial district where I'd spent years building my career while simultaneously funding my family's excesses. "Victoria, go home," I said without turning around. "My answer is no. The ATM is closed permanently." "Madison, please, no," I interrupted, my voice firm but not cruel. "My life is my own now. Goodbye, Victoria." She hesitated, then gathered her coat and stood. I heard the soft click of the door closing behind her. I returned to my desk, absently touching my father's diamond necklace. The weight I'd carried since his death, the burden of being everyone's financial solution, felt lighter somehow, dissolving with each step Victoria took toward the elevator. My phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I replied. "Just closed my final position in a toxic investment." Spring arrived in Manhattan like a revelation. From the expansive windows of Gabriel's Tribeca penthouse, I watched Central Park transform from winter's gray palette to an explosion of pinks and whites as cherry blossoms reached their peak. I sipped my morning coffee, the warmth of the cup matching the warmth spreading through my chest as I took in the view. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel asked, joining me by the window, his hand resting lightly on my lower back. "Everything," I replied, turning to smile at him. 3 months ago, my life was completely different. The transformation had been extraordinary. Our fintech venture combining luxury hospitality and wealth management had secured $50 million in series of funding. I'd fully embraced my role as chief investment officer, building a team that leveraged my Wall Street connections with Gabriel's tech innovations. On the personal front, We'd moved in together officially, merging our lives with surprising ease. The diamond on my left hand, a recent addition, caught the morning light, sending prisms dancing across the window. Ethan's social media accounts had gone dormant. Victoria's Instagram, once filled with designer purchases and luxury vacations, had been deleted entirely. Through industry connections, I'd heard they'd been forced to sell the Brooklyn Heights brownstone, moving to a modest apartment in Queens. My mother and stepfather had similarly downsized, their Florida mansion exchanged for a simple condo. Any regrets? Gabriel asked, his eyes serious as they met mine. About your family, I mean. I touched my father's diamond necklace, my touchstone through all these changes. None whatsoever. This is the path I was meant to take. The necklace felt different now, no longer a burden of obligation but a connection to the father who had recognized my strength even when I hadn't. True family isn't about DNA, I said softly. It's about who stands beside you when things get difficult. Who celebrates your successes instead of resenting them. Gabriel squeezed my hand in understanding. Speaking of celebration, we should get ready for tonight. The restaurant Gabriel had chosen for dinner was familiar, the same upscale place where we'd first discussed investing in his hospitality tech platform 2 years ago. The circular journey wasn't lost on me as we settled into our table overlooking the city lights. I have some news, Gabriel said after we'd ordered. His eyes sparkled with excitement. The platform is expanding to the West Coast. We've just acquired a boutique hotel chain in California, and their reservation systems need complete integration with our financial services model. He reached across the table for my hand. I want you to lead the expansion. Your financial expertise, combined with what you've learned about hospitality technology, makes you perfect for this. Co-lead, I corrected with a smile. Partnership, remember? The word carried weight beyond business now. In 3 short months, Gabriel had become my true partner in every sense, supporting my decisions, celebrating my successes, challenging me when needed. The opposite of the parasitic relationships I'd finally escaped. To new beginnings, I said, raising my champagne glass. And to building something meaningful together. To our lives, Gabriel responded, his glass meeting mine with a crystal-clear chime that seemed to ring with possibility. As we clinked glasses, my father's diamond caught the candlelight. For the first time since his death, I felt certain he would approve of my choices. I had protected the family member who mattered most, myself, and in doing so, found the strength to build something new. That basement room keycard from Christmas Eve had unlocked more than Victoria had ever intended. It had opened the door to my freedom.